the most important thing is that I think you have the quickest turnaround time. I don't know how you do it. I never had to follow up with you on anything. So if I have given my draft, maybe max one day you would revert back with your comments or whatever your thoughts are on that. So, and anything that I did with you, whether it's the MBA project, whether it's the essay reviews, and we also did a couple of mock interviews. So you have a very well organized structure. In general, you're a very positive and a friendly person. So as I mentioned earlier, that you're the first person to tell me that um, that you would be surprised if I don't get into an M7 school. So that was kind of really a confidence booster for me.
Hi everyone, this is Piyush. I'm the founder and chief consultant of Management Masters. We are a boutique admissions consulting firm for the top MBA programs around the world. Today we have with us Deep Saha. Deep worked with us to apply to multiple business schools like Darden and Cornell, and he received admits from both of them. At the same time, he also applied to some other schools on his own, like Booth and Michigan Ross, and he also received admits from them. So without further ado, let's hear it from Deep. Deep, it's an incredible pleasure to have you with us here. Before we get started with the detailed interview, could you just give us a brief background of where are you coming from and very quickly introduce yourself to us?
Thank you, Piyush, for the introduction. It's great to be here finally on the other side. So a bit about me. I grew up in Kolkata. After school, I decided not to go down the traditional engineering route like most of my friends, but I love maths. So I decided to study statistics. I completed my bachelor's and master's in statistics from the University of Calcutta. And then after my master's, I joined a market research firm called Ipsos in the marketing analytics division, where I worked with several Fortune 500 clients across multiple sectors, helping them optimize their marketing spend using data and analytics and predictive modeling. Most of my clients were Chicago based, and I had a brief stint in Chicago as well back in 2018. So that was kind of my first interaction with Chicago. And so I spent around 3 years there, led a few projects, and then I wanted to try something new. I wanted to learn about a new domain. So I switched from marketing to risk. I joined HSBC, which is one of the world's largest banks, in their credit risk analytics division, where my work was completely different than what I used to do in Ipsos. Here, I primarily worked for their Canada corporate portfolio, where I built models, analyzed the data to kind of assess the risk profile of the corporate. So building models to predict whether a corporate will default, assessing their risk, and then predicting the regulatory capital that the bank might need in case of any unexpected losses. Mm-hmm. So that's kind of the work I did in HSBC, and I was there for 3 years. In fact, I just had my farewell this week. So I'm now off to a new start. So that's kind of about me.
That sounds so incredible. Because you've had such a long career in data and sort of analytics, with credit risk and everything that you've worked on, could you help us understand what really sort of drove you to the decision that you would want to apply for an MBA at this point of at this stage of your career?
Yeah, sure. So I would say there are 3 primary reasons why I decided to go for an MBA. First was somewhere down the line, I realized that as much as I enjoy or love working in analytics, writing codes, building models, and I was working on some of the biggest problems, but most of my learnings were focused on the technical aspects. So and I was not getting the complete picture, and I felt that my business or strategy skills are not evolving at the same rate as my technical or analytical skills. And that's when I decided that maybe it's time to get a formal business education. So I already have a quantitative foundation. I have gained technical and analytical skills, and it would be nice to kind of round off my skills with an MBA. So that's the first. Mm-hmm. Second would be I started thinking long term, that where do I see myself in the next 10 or 15 years? And if I continue working in analytics, where would I reach? And again, I felt that I don't want to restrict myself to one single function and limit my growth opportunities. And that's when I started thinking about alternate careers where I would get more cross-functional exposure. And again, MBA MBA makes these career transitions much easier. So that was another reason for me to why I started thinking about MBA. And finally, I would say global exposure. I did not want to restrict myself geographically. So I wanted to build a global network and also to have that experience of studying in a global business school. So these are the three reasons I decided to go for an MBA.
That makes so much sense, and it's very interesting to see the way you have sort of structured it out, right? Because all these points that you have, it shows the long-term vision that you started thinking about, right? In terms of your career, in terms of where do you see yourself going ahead, and it makes so much sense that an MBA could help you move into those directions very nicely. I recall, our first association essentially started when we had the MBA project, right? And you were part of the first cohort that we started for MBA project. So in that case, could you help us understand a bit about like how did the MBA project actually spur you on or sort of help you understand what you could do? Because if I recall correctly, when you joined us for the MBA project, you were looking to apply this year. So you were looking to apply for the 2023 intake rather than applying last year. So could you just help us understand a bit what happened there?
Yeah, definitely. So I started thinking about MBA somewhere in 2020 end, and then in Feb or March 21, I was more serious. I was researching options, but the problem for me was I did not have any peers or anyone in my circle who has gone for their MBA from at least from a global business school. They are either working in corporate or have gone for their PhDs, which PhD is a completely different thing from MBA, right? So I did not know where to start. I did not have this idea that whether it is at all feasible for me to afford an MBA, right? And that's where luckily somewhere in March or April I came across your post of MBA project, and it was kind of a crash course for me in the MBA application. So right from how to think about MBA, why MBA, and all those stuff to how to select the location, how to select the schools, and how to present your story. We also had one essay writing session, right? And also I connected with a lot of current B school students. So I learned how to approach them, how to talk to them. That is a very essential part of your research, right? And with all those information, I think so I went from casually researching the options to preparing for my GMAT in somewhere in the beginning of May. So that's how the MBA project kind of, and I thought that, and we had our first profile evaluation call with you. I had, and you in fact mentioned that why are you waiting for another year? You already have enough experience to start this year, and you have a good enough profile. And in fact, you were the first person to tell me that I have very, very good chances in a top B school. So, and that certainly boosted my confidence. So, and that's why I started thinking about applying this year.
That sounds incredible, but and that's very kind of you, right? Because again, I think when I first talked to you, and I heard from you that you don't think your profile is good enough. I was like, the thing in my mind was, what is he talking about? Like, why does he feel that he's not good enough? But again, I think we can tell you what we can suggest, but at the end of the day, it's always going to come back to you. What do you do with that information? So you said that you started working on your GMAT prep sort of somewhere in May. And if I remember correctly, you sort of got done with it by August, right? So could you just walk us through how did you really work on your GMAT prep? What kind of resources did you utilize that really helped you get a very, very nice score at the end?
Sure. So I got done with my GMAT in September, not August. I planned to give it in August. Yeah. So GMAT was a pain point for me, and as with everyone else, not because it's a difficult test, it's not, but because I was working full time, and at that point I was working on a critical project, so the work pressure was quite high. So finding the time to prepare. And the second thing would be I was kind of racing against time because I knew that all the top B schools have their deadlines in September. So to give myself a fair shot, I need to get done by August. So kind of I had a window of 3 months. So that these are the two reasons why it was kind of a pain point. But and now coming to the prep, I would say quant was never an issue for me because of my background. But verbal was. It is not my greatest strength, I would say. So, so I went all in for verbal. So you name any resource, I had gone through it. So whether it's the Manhattan Guide, whether it's the Power Score books, whether it's the countless YouTube videos of GMAT Ninja, Thursdays with Ron, and also online prep companies as well. So I went through all these and finally was able to get to my target score. And I was a bit late. So by August, I felt that I was not there. So I postponed it by 2 or 3 weeks. But fortunately, I was able to get done with it in one time. So yeah. And then fun fact that I scored my highest score at the real exam. So I was targeting a 750 plus score, and 3 weeks prior the real test, I got a 720. 2 weeks before the real test, I got a 740. Last week, I got a 750, and the real test, I got a 760. So
awesome. It's absolutely awesome. But a very quick sort of question, like since you were able to sort of manage it, you were doing this, as you said, working on a very critical project, managing the GMAT prep alongside that. What would you have any tips or advice for aspirants who are preparing for the GMAT? What can they do to sort of manage this aspect better? Because most of the people are in very similar shoes as you are, that they are working and they are working on difficult things, and it's just difficult to get that time out to prepare for GMAT. So any advice that worked out very nicely for you that you would give to future aspirants?
I think that is the most important question because that is the most difficult part. So I would say there are no shortcuts to it. You have to put in the hours. So discipline is the most important thing, and the habit of getting into studying every day. So that is really important. So in my case, I put in 2 to 3 hours every day. So whether it's 1 hour before work, 1 hour after work, or 2 hours before work, depending on how my day was. Right. So that is something you can't skip. You have to put in those hours. And also, it's really important to take the mocks. So every alternate week, I used to take the mocks to get myself habituated to taking a 3.5 hour long test, right? And and simulating it as close as to the real one, so that I get the how it goes, right? So these are something that is must do for anyone who is preparing for GMAT. Other than that, I would also like to highlight 2 key areas which I think will help in getting a good score. One would be finding out what works for you. So different things work for different people, right? Which strategy works for you, which section to start with, how to pace yourself, how to tackle the difficult question, or how to basically handle the test. Because it is also one important aspect that sometimes we overlook and we only tend to practice. And another important thing is to always learn from the mistakes, that where are you going wrong, and make sure that you are not repeating the same mistakes over and over again. So in my case, for example, in my case, when I was in the test, I did the verbal section first because I knew that I need my 100% concentration in verbal, and maybe I can handle the quant even if my brain is a little exhausted.
Okay. Then that makes sense. That's a very interesting approach, right?
Even in the prep, 75% of my prep was verbal and only 25% was quant. So figure out what works for you and work on that. And in fact, the previous year I was telling you that my score was lifted from 720 to 760 in the last 3 weeks. It was because I identified one pain point, that I was not doing well in the RCs. So I started practicing advanced questions. I started doing LSAT questions. And slowly I can see the scores improve. So that's how that is also another important thing.
Yeah.
And finally, one last tip would be keeping your calm during the exam. A lot of things can and will go wrong during the real thing, and it did for me as well. So I'm very sure that I screwed up the last questions in each quant and verbal section, which I later confirmed from my ESR. Okay. So then I lost 90 seconds in quant because I miscalculated. I lost track of time during my break. I randomly guessed some of the IR questions because I was running out of time. I submitted AWA with seconds left. And in fact, when I was clicking that button view scores, I was fully expecting a 720 and not a 750 plus score. And I was pleasantly surprised. But what is important was that I kept calm throughout because I had given all the 8-9 mocks and I knew that you have to go on.
If I sort of kind of get the gist out of it from what you have said, keeping calm, taking those mocks regularly, and being very consistent with the practice that you're doing. And also, I think this has come up from multiple candidates that we've talked to, that always making sure that you know where you are making mistakes so that you improve upon them further, right? That makes perfect sense here. Now, let's move ahead a little bit with terms of the application, right? So you have your GMAT score now. How did you decide which schools did you want to apply to, what and how to move forward with your applications?
Sure. So first was the location. So US was my first priority from the very beginning because of two reasons. One, all like 70% or 80% of the top 30 business schools in the world are from US. So it's kind of the birthplace of MBA. Some of the courses are even 100 years old. So I wanted to get the education from the best place possible. So A was that. And B, the careers I was targeting. Again, US are the best places, provides the best opportunity. And with most of the courses now being STEM, you get also 3 years. So that was also another thing. And finally, the average experience in US was 5 to 5.5 years, whereas Europe and Asian schools have 6 to 7 years. So my strategy was that this year I'm going to focus on the US schools only. And then next year, if things don't work out, next year I'll work on European and Asian schools. So now, once I decided on the geography, I focused on the top 15 schools only. I decided that I won't go beyond this. And within the top 15 schools, again, I created 3 buckets, which I think most of the candidates do. So just for context, one is your dream bucket, where the schools are the elite ones, the top ones, where you dream of going, but obviously with they are more competitive, so less chances. Second is the target bucket, which are equally good schools, but you have more chances of converting. And third is a safety bucket, which are also great schools, and your chances of converting are much higher. But that doesn't mean it's a school where if you get admitted, you won't go. So that is also something to keep in consideration. Don't waste your application money, right? So these are the 3 buckets that I created. And as I mentioned that I finished my GMAT quite late, it was in September. So I did not have many options in round 1. And I did not want to rush my application. So I focused mostly on the October schools, where the deadlines were in October. And Booth was my top priority from the moment I started researching MBA. If you remember, I even had mentioned Chicago Booth in my first meeting with you. I don't know why. Maybe it's because of their quant-based or data-driven approach, or maybe because I have a connection with the city, but it is what it is. But I did not apply to Booth in round 1 because I did not want to rush my application. So in round 1, I only applied to 4 schools. One in the dream bucket, which was Columbia. Then in the target bucket, Tuck and Stern. And finally, in the safety, Cornell, I kind of applied as a safety bucket. I would say, which categorize it that way. And thankfully I did, because my round 1 results weren't that great. I got waitlisted at Tuck and Stern, and I got rejected at Columbia. So, but I got a full 50K scholarship from Cornell. So that was a kind of relief for me. and to go into round 2 with more confidence. Having said that, I had already started working on Booth long back, soon after the round 1 thing ended. So in round 2, I was still, I would say, on the conservative side. I applied to 2 dream schools on the dream school bucket, that is Booth and Kellogg. Then in the target bucket, I went for Darden, Ross, and Duke, Fuqua, and no safety schools because I have already had admit from Cornell. And round 2 is where I think things changed. Maybe because I had more time with my application, because nothing changed drastically in my career, right? So maybe because of that fact. And in round 2, I got admits from both Darden and Ross with full scholarship. Stern also gave me an admit, taking me off waitlist. And finally, I got my admit from Booth. So to summarize, I applied to 9 schools in total, got 7 interviews, and got 5 admits. So yeah.
That is absolutely awesome, and I think that's sort of like a dream run that you had, right? So for round 1, we basically worked on Columbia and Cornell, and then in round 2, we worked on Darden and, if I remember correctly, Kellogg, right?
Yeah.
Right. And I do recall, Columbia, when you got rejected, it was obviously we did not expect that, but again, you cannot expect anything with elite schools. So could you help us understand a bit how exactly did you work on your essays? What did you focus on when you were building up your essays and sort of applying to those schools?
I think the MBA project kind of gave me that idea on what kind of stuff to focus on. So and we had many calls for essay review sessions where you helped me identify which are my most impactful stories and which are not. So so even though we did not work on Booth together, but some of my stories came up from those discussions that we had. So that is kind of how I knew that these are the top stories that I have from my life, and now trying to fit into the different questions that the B schools had. So that was the approach.
So could you elaborate a bit on like how did we sort of working with us? How did that help you in sort of building up your essays? Was there any advantage to working with a consultant or doing it on your own, going about it? If you could elaborate a bit on that.
Yeah, it was definitely very helpful to work with a consultant, and especially you, because what happens most of the time, and after going through this process, that I realized that the main thing that we struggle with is telling our stories. We don't know what are our most impactful stories, or sometimes we tend to overlook certain aspects of our life where we feel this might not be a very important thing, but this actually is. So that is where I think you played a big role, helping me identify those important ones. And also, once you have identified those stories, then how to present them. So it's one thing to identify that, okay, I have this story, but how to tell that story. So this is the second part where I guess I got a lot of help, because I'm not a great writer. I don't enjoy writing. So these are the 2 ways I would say you specifically helped me.
What would you say was the most interesting part of the entire application process for you?
Definitely not GMAT. Definitely not essays as well, because I don't enjoy writing, as I mentioned. Maybe the research part. I really loved knowing about the schools. So all of these schools, irrespective of the ranking, they are all top schools, and they all have something unique to offer. So it was really interesting for me to learn about the schools, the programs that they have. And then also another big thing that came up from this MBA experience was I spoke to like 50 or 100 people from these schools. So reaching out to new people, making connections, talking to them, that is something out of my comfort zone, and something I'm not really comfortable with. But I had to do it, and now I can say that I'm good at it. So So this would be the most interesting part of the journey, I would say.
Sounds pretty interesting. So something which was absolutely uncomfortable for you actually became the most interesting part of the entire application for you.
Yeah.
It sounds absolutely incredible. Uh, a very quick sort of feedback question for us in terms of how was it working with us? What did you like, or what do you think could be something that we might want to improve further?
Yeah, definitely. So what I liked, the most important thing is that I think you have the quickest turnaround time. I don't know how you do it, but and I don't know with your growing clients how would you continue to do it. But uh, I never had to follow up with you on anything. So if I have given my draft, maybe max one day you would revert back with your comments or whatever your thoughts are on that. So that's the number one thing. Second, I would say that you are very, very organized. And anything that I did with you, whether it's the MBA project, whether it's the essay reviews, and we also did a couple of mock interviews. So you have a very well organized structure. So that is really impressive. And third thing, I would say that in general, you're a very positive and a friendly person. So as I mentioned earlier, that you're the first person to tell me that that you would be surprised if I don't get into an M7 school. So that was kind of really a confidence booster for me. So these are the three things that I really liked. And in terms of improvement areas, it's difficult for me because first of all, I did not go through the whole process. I only did essay reviews and interviews. And I like the whole thing and things worked out fine for me. So maybe I'm not the best person to answer that question.
All right. So maybe we will continue our association anyway, and hopefully you find something and give us some improvement areas as well. But thank you so much, Deep, for that. Let's move into the last part of the interview, which is a rapid fire, where we'll simply ask you 4 or 5 questions, which are very, very interesting.
Yeah.
And we are not expecting long answers. We are expecting very, very short, off-the-cuff answers from you, right? So just interesting ones. So let's start with the first one. You have been through the entire MBA application process. What do you believe is the biggest myth that you had, which does not really exist in the MBA application?
I don't know if I can answer that in one sentence, but I'll try. I think the biggest myth is that we have certain set ideas that these are all the qualities that a top B school is looking for in the candidate, that you have to be from a tier 1 college, you have to have like multiple promotions, international experience, a great super high GMAT score, a splendid extracurricular, like founding an NGO or national level athlete, something like that. But it's not true. They are not looking for all the qualities in one single person. So they are looking for a real person with real experiences. All they're looking for is consistency. And that includes both your success and failure and everything that you are. So yeah, that's the biggest myth.
Cool. That sounds pretty good. What was the worst part of the application process that you do not want to go back to?
GMAT.
Okay.
Was that too quick?
Absolutely perfect. I think we get that like too many times as that answer.
You should remove that question. That will be the answer 99.9% of the time. 0.1% I'm leaving because I'm a statistician. Other than that, it can be 100% as well.
Perfect. So one aspect of the Chicago Booth program that you are really, really looking forward to?
Program right now? Okay. I'll answer in 2 parts. So first, in terms of the program, so what I really liked about Booth is it is a flexible program. So other than that one course, which is a lead program, everything else is flexible. So for example, in my case, I don't need to take a statistics class. I can take a PhD level course or a machine learning course, something like that. So, and it's available throughout. So you can structure your own program. So that is something I'm really looking forward to. And but at this moment right now, I'm not looking forward to something career wise or academic wise. I'm looking forward to something called a random walk, which is kind of a welcome trip. So before the school starts, it's a tradition where we go on trips led by the second year. So that is something I'm really looking forward to.
All right, that sounds pretty good. So one piece of advice for aspirants who are preparing for their MBA applications.
Yeah, I think the number one advice would be self-aware. So I see two kind of people who are either overestimating their profile and only apply to M7 schools and then get rejected. And then there's the other ones who even don't think of applying to the top business schools. So it's really important to be self-aware, self-evaluate your profile. If you have a dream school, absolutely go ahead, apply. Don't listen to anyone. But at the same time, make sure you're also applying to those target schools and those safety schools. And that's why you need to be self-aware. So yeah.
Makes sense. And one thing that you would change if you had to reapply for your MBA?
I would be more aggressive. I think I was a bit more conservative with my choices. For example, I did not apply to any of the HSW, Harvard, Stanford, Wharton, even though you wanted me to. But yeah, so maybe that's something but I'm super happy with Booth. It is my dream school, so it doesn't matter.
Absolutely perfect. Thank you so much, Deep. It has been an incredible conversation. I wish you the best for Booth and for everything that you do in the future.